Welcome to the Period Besties Podcast with Stasha and Katie. Think about it as chatting with your best friends about all the TMI stuff you've never talked about before with two period coaches who've been helping hormones collectively for over 20 years now. I'm Stasha.
And I'm Katie, and we're pulling back the curtain on what it's like in the world of menstrual coaching. From puberty to menopause and everything in between, we're here to show you how period coaching can save the day. We'll share practical tips and information you can put to immediate use to improve your hormones and happiness.
We're removing the mystery, ending the taboo, and shining a light on just how powerful period coaching can be.
So whether you need period coaching or are considering becoming a period coach yourself, these episodes are going to help you. We'll share stories, coach live on air, and bring smart, savvy guests to share their wisdom too. Let's start today's episode.
If you have a chronic illness or feel like you're playing life on hard mode, this episode is especially for you. But if you aren't, I really would like you to listen to this episode because you know somebody who is. And it would be really helpful if we were all on the same page as far as chronic illness, how our menstrual cycles affect these kinds of things, and chronic menstrual issues, right? So Katie and I were talking about this episode, and we started off talking about chronic menstrual issues, right? Endometriosis, adenomyosis, PCOS, PMDD, even infertility struggles, these things that can take years that are never really resolved until you're in menopause, and maybe not even in menopause, right? PMDD can rear its head up postmenopausally, endometriosis, because it's literally outside the uterus. It literally is tissue producing its own estrogen. It can go on well after menopause because it's an independent structure, right? So some of these things can be lifelong conditions. Some of them can be as long as you're menstrually lifelong condition, right? So that, but then we kind of fell down a rabbit hole and we're like, okay, but also chronic fatigue, things like fibromyalgia, chronic pain, those even neurodiversities can be affected so that your menstrual cycle makes them worse, makes the fatigue worse, makes the ADHD worse, makes whatever worse. So you also have this chronic thing that your cycle influences and can make worse or better, right? Because you have the flip side of the coin where you feel really good and the pain is gone or the fatigue is lifted or whatever. So your menstrual cycle ebbs and flows your chronic illness, impacting it. So we realized how just it radiates out in a really big way. And we talked about it and we just thought, you know what we really need to come back to is the reality and acknowledgement of how hard it is to live in a society that doesn't acknowledge women's pain, that thinks chronic fatigue is just being lazy, unmotivated, welfare queen kind of typical ideas. So it's hard enough to be struggling on your own, but then to have your surrounding support system or your friends or family not understand or just writing you off, insult to injury, right? You're already down for the count and now you feel bad and guilty on top of it because you're not performing to those levels. Could even just be at work where you see a coworker who's just 24/7, easy breezy, they have the 2-day period, no problems, just ba, 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 ba. And you, on the other hand, are like me and you can't even hold down a job for a year because your endometriosis just debilitates you and you're basically unemployable. So it can be really hard. So we just want to acknowledge that if you are on the struggle bus with me, then we understand and welcome to the bus. And I love you and I see you. But also for your friends and family, for people listening to acknowledge that it's not by choice. Nobody wants to be in pain. Nobody wants to be just depressed, stuck to the couch, miserable. That's not where people want to be. People want to be living a life, right? So acknowledging that. And then lastly, we really want to dive into self-care and letting go of the guilt or the shame, let yourself off the hook. And so we really want to give you some tips and advice to living with it, to dealing with it, to this mental health stuff as well. I mean, Katie went through a lot of mental health struggles, and I'll let her take over for that with the infertility. So we really just want to acknowledge it and then take it into this place of self-love and self-care.
Yeah, thank you for going through that list, because we honestly were like, how do we even start? Because when you start going down that rabbit hole, there's so many things that women deal with versus men and what they deal with. And I think that one of the things that I've witnessed with friends and my clients is, because there's been a lack of awareness, there's a lack of understanding. And a lot of times, if you're not finding the right support, whether that's a doctor or your friends, you just feel like you're bothering people all the time and that you're complaining. And that I felt like that when I was going through infertility and just trying to figure out, like, that was the only thing I could talk about and think about. It was consuming my life. And it's hard when you're going through something and that's all you can think about, and your friends are kind of over it. But they love you and they're still listening. They're trying to help, but there's nothing that they can do to support you. So we're hoping that this episode can wrap you up like a big hug, because we're your period besties, and really give you that support, because we understand we both have been through things where we were like, I don't know. I'm just going to sit here on the couch and feel sorry for myself.
Yeah. Or like you're constantly apologizing. I feel like I'm constantly,
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm talking about this again. Oh,
I'm so sorry I can't make dinner tonight. Oh, I'm so sorry I can't help you out with that. I'm sorry I can't walk the dogs. I'm sorry I can't feed the cats. I'm sorry I can't do the cat litter. I feel like and of course, Chris is constantly like, stop apologizing. You don't have to apologize. You are miserable. I know you would rather be up and about and feel good and do the cat litter than being glued to bed. So, but it's true. You do find yourself constantly apologizing, even though it's not your fault.
Yeah. There's a weird, and this is a whole other episode, like talking about guilt and where that actually comes from. Because everyone's like, oh, it's Jewish guilt or it's Catholic guilt. I think every religion, every family has some sort of guilt, right? But I think it's interesting that we tend to feel guilty or we apologize when we're the ones that aren't feeling great, right? So I think that there needs to be first that love and compassion for yourself and what you're going through. And that can honestly be the hardest part, because you can apologize to your friends, you can feel guilty, all of that. But when we come back and really try to nurture and love ourselves, like, how do we actually do that? How do we have compassion for ourselves? And that's a lifelong practice, a lifelong lesson. One of the things that I find myself saying a lot is, would you ever say that to your best friend? If your best friend called you, would you ever be annoyed with them and apologize and feel guilt? No, you would listen, we would help, we would support, we would check on them. So I always like to turn it around and say, you're your best friend. Treat yourself the way that you treat your friends, even people you are not friends with, how you treat them. You're very kind and respectful, right? So really turning that around. Would you ever say that to your best friend? Would you ever react to your best friend? And that helps me with perspective, because when I'm in it, the perspective is hard to find for me.
It is. It so is. And you're right. I've done that where I've just turned it around and been like, I'm sorry, body. I'm sorry I tried to force you to do a bunch of stuff that you were not prepared or able to do today, rather than, externalizing it. So, yeah, it is a good way to do it. A lot of journaling has gone into my acceptance of where I am and repairing the relationship with my cycle. A lot of talking. I can't say that I had therapy because I've been poor most of my life, but and now I'm in a good place. But I did do a lot of EFT and worked with an EFT coach for 3-4 years on the endometriosis and all of that stuff. So I can't say that I've tried traditional talk therapy, but I definitely did a lot of energy tool therapy to deal with it, which I feel like I needed. The talking about it, I don't know, it would have been as effective as really breaking that nervous system dysregulation and breaking that cycle within that safe space. So for me, I feel like that was really the best way to go about doing it. But even that, I started on my own. I started with a book on it and watching some YouTube videos of people doing it and listening to different scripts and different styles and different techniques, and then feeling what felt good for me and adapting it. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be what works for you. So just sort of adapting it and changing things, and then changing it with my cycle, really realizing, tapping is fine in follicular and ovulation, but a hold is better in luteal and menstrual. The tapping was annoying and irritating, and it wasn't helping, it was hurting and that kind of thing. So really giving yourself that grace and then setting yourself up for success. So one of my number one self-care tips for people with chronic pain and chronic fatigue illnesses, which I say across the board because I have both, is that you need to set yourself up for success. Whether that means getting a chest freezer, like I got a chest freezer off of Craigslist way back in the day. It's still going. I still use it. And I have meals in there. So when I have a good day, I batch cook. Like today's a good day. It's going to be cold and rainy all week. It's monsoon season and it's just really getting us this week. So I'm making a batch of chili. I would never normally make a batch of chili in the middle of summer, but it's like high of 70. And after having 90-degree days, having this week of 70 feels like winter. So I'm batching some chili. And you know what? I bet most of it ends up in the freezer. And that in the winter, when I'm in a chronic flare, like a pain flare or fatigue flare, I bet that's when most of this will actually come out and be eaten. But for the next couple of days, it'll be really nice while we're in monsoon season. So it's really setting yourself up. What can you do? What do you need to have in the house? What do you need to have in bulk? When you cook, you need to cook for 3 times or 4 times more than you need for that one meal so that you have 2, 3, 4 meals in the freezer ready to go down the line. So really setting yourself up for success, and it does take a bit of planning. So if you have a neurodiversity that makes executive functioning hard, maybe calling a friend, getting team, getting support. I definitely have friends that have a high level of ADHD who do batching together, where everyone kind of comes together and cooks all together, and then everyone goes home with batched foods so that they're overriding that executive functioning because they have a body double essentially, but then everybody gets to go home and has, a month worth of meals ready to go into the freezer, or even just cut up veggies and things that you can toss in and ready to go. So what do you need to prepare yourself so that on your fatigue days or your pain days, if you can eat, which hopefully you can, you're eating something. And is it something that you can eat? Is it something that you like to eat? Is it something that's okay? Like I can't eat, say, chili on a pain day, but I can have something light, something easier. And that's when I have a case of gluten-free dumplings in the freezer because I can eat the gluten-free dumplings. Those are okay on a pain day. I don't know if it's just because they're doughy for the most part with like a little bit of flavor, but it's just easier on the body, easier on the system, or just straight up bone broth with some noodles in it. So it's, just basically chicken broth and noodles, but it's nourishing and there's a little bit of energy in those noodles because for me on pain days, I need foods that have higher levels of sugar. Like I just need access to the energy immediately. I can't wait for the protein and the fats and the fibers to kick in. I need something, a rice cake with peanut butter and banana on it. Like I need something that has an immediate source of sugar in it because it helps keep the pain at a level I can deal with. So figuring it out for yourself for sure, but figuring out what's a healthy food for you in a pain flare might not be a healthy food all of the time, right? So just figuring out what you need and making sure it's stocked and ready to go.
It's so smart. I love that you have a big, deep freezer with everything. It's so, so smart. And batch cooking. I think one of the things that really helps me is permission to rest because it's hard. It's very challenging for me to rest, even though I love it because I have such limited time now to rest that I crave it even more. But I'm about to get my period. I was so exhausted yesterday. My eyes were closing as I was trying to type on the computer. I was so tired. And I went to bed super early last night. So giving myself permission to rest, go to bed early, work on the couch, do work it from bed, and maybe even not work, like just watch a TV show, depending on what's happening in my life on that day. But I think that was definitely a turning point for me when I had Epstein-Barr virus years ago and apparently chronic fatigue at the same time, and really having to do a deeper rest than I used to do. It was really just non-actionable rest, because I think before that, rest for me was like, let me go to the park, let me go to the beach, let me do these things. And I had to really wheel that in and say, or I could just sit here on the couch and do nothing. And doing nothing is valuable and important. That was definitely a challenging thing for me to actually incorporate. And now I crave it, and going to bed early and doing all those things, really just giving yourself permission to do what you need, I guess, is the broader thing to share.
Yeah, but you know what? You're absolutely right. First of all, women need more sleep than men, right? We need more like 9, 10 hours to a man, 7, 8 hours. And you might see that ebb and flow with your cycle, right? You might feel like you need less sleep in follicular and more sleep in deep luteal or that kind of thing. But we need more sleep than we're getting. And I mean, what woman is getting a full 8 hours of sleep, let alone 9 or 10, right? So
Nothing is uninterrupted anymore.
right? Yeah, absolutely. So getting a really solid night of sleep, but then resting, and especially in that deep luteal and menstrual phase, naps. Like even if you're the healthiest person, you may still find yourself wanting naps in those phases, and that's okay. You need more rest. You are really busy bleeding and not dying, or preparing to bleed and not die. And then perimenopause, that whole decade, you need more rest. Your body is going through freaking withdrawal. You wouldn't say to somebody, oh, you're going through withdrawal, you need to just push through. You would be like, no, you need to rest and recover. We want to see you healthy at the end of this. Same thing with perimenopause. You're going through withdrawal of several hormones and you need rest. Your body needs time to realign, readjust, you need rest. So, as women, just across the board, we need more rest, and giving yourself that permission to rest is really a key bit. Because you're right, I did the same thing. I was like, oh, I'll rest. I'll work on the couch instead of at my desk. Like, come on.
Yeah. Or let me just sit here and watch 10 episodes of some show. Yeah. And it's so important. This is a conversation I've been having with a few of my clients in perimenopause right now, because a lot of them desperately want to take a nap in the afternoon. And I am saying, go for it. Take a 20-minute nap, take a 30-minute nap, recharge.
Yeah.
First of all, we're not robots. We're not supposed to be on all day, even though sometimes I really wish I could do that. We're not. Sometimes my to-do list is too long. And it's just one of those things, giving ourselves permission to rest. And it doesn't have to be at night. You could take a nap. And again, it's usually different phases of your cycle, luteal, deep luteal, but especially during perimenopause, really good point, because I think a lot of us are at the top of our careers. We're doing a lot and we've built where we are, but we're in a different stage of life. So really trying to ebb and flow and understand that and not put pressure on that in the same way, I think can be very, very challenging.
Yeah, I think that's so important. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, I was in follicular, oh, I don't know, maybe it was last month. And I mean, I was like day 11, 12, like really kind of peak follicular. And I napped for like 3 hours one day.
Oh,
Napped for 2 hours one day. And I was like, wow, this is definitely perimenopause, because I would never nap in follicular previously. But I was like, this is obviously perimenopause, because I would never take an hour, let alone 3 hour nap in follicular.
that was me yesterday. We were making dinner and I looked at Jim and said, I need to take a nap. I can't keep my eyes open. So I went in the bed. I didn't fall asleep, but I just closed my eyes because I was hungry. I can't sleep when I'm hungry. But it did help because I didn't think I could keep going. But I wouldn't say it gave me extra energy. It just kept me from not falling asleep at 5:30.
So, if you're listening, we'd love to hear from you. Are you struggling? Are you dealing with a chronic menstrual illness or a chronic illness or a neurodiversity that's influenced by your menstrual cycle that you're dealing with or coping with? We'd love to hear what tips or advice you would give your younger self or some other people who may be in your shoes a few steps behind you. We'd love to hear what you have to share. And of course, we want to hear your stories. So please feel free to share with us. Again, nothing's TMI. We want to hear from you. We want to know what's going on, what the real story is. You don't have to candy coat it for us. We want to hear what's really happening for you. So let us know. And hopefully, you have a little more empathy for perhaps friends or family members that are struggling, or perhaps even yourself. And we do hope that you take those tips to heart. Give yourself permission to rest. Let yourself off the hook. You're not doing anything wrong. Figuring out ways to let go of the shame, that guilt, that kind of thing. Giving yourself the setup to be able to care for yourself properly as needed. And really, hopefully, giving yourself that big hug, that warm blanket of comfort, and know you're not alone. We're here with you, and we're happy to help in any way we can. Just let us know. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.
A big shout out and thank you to our sponsors for today's episode, Period Coaching School and Katie Bresek Wellness.
Thanks to you, our favorite bestie, for listening to the Period Besties Podcast, where no topic is TMI. And of course, share this episode with your besties.
Remember to leave us a 5-star review, nothing less than the best for us besties, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can follow us on Instagram at Stasha Washburn and at Katie Bresek, or email us at periodbestiespodcast@gmail.com.
Check out more about us at katiebresek.com and periodcoachingschool.com. And of course, check the show notes for free goodies and extras that support this episode.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye for now, besties.